Hi everyone. So, it's been a while since I've done a video. Sorry if I haven't been around, been easily distracted by many things in life. So, I'm here to talk about my 10 favorite films of 2021. And you're asking yourself, why are you making a video about films from 2021 when we're already into the new year? Because I can. That's why. So, in contrast to the mess that was 2020, 2021 felt like a year where not only was cinema back, but myself was back, and it felt so good to get back to watching movies again. Yeah. Uh, Sorry about that. It's just, I felt so enthused in going back into cinema again on all fronts. There was just so much in terms of variety from last year. You had all sorts of indie darlings coming out of the woodwork. You had big blockbusters. You had small stuff. You had stuff hitting streaming. You had brand new premieres. There was just all sorts of stuff that kept on coming out, left and right, front to back, center and top. It was just great. And I figured with all the amount of films that I saw from last year, in total, I saw about 71, which is 71 new releases, I should clarify, not 71 films in total. The amount of movies I did watch from last year was a far bigger number than that, trust me. So, with 71 films watched, I figured I could probably do a video about my favorite films of last year. And so I figured, why not? So before I begin this video talking about the primary top 10 favorite films of last year, I want to go over 5 honorable mentions. Films that were on this list at one point, but unfortunately, due to other contenders coming in, had to get knocked off for one reason or another. Apologies to these films, and do not take their lower placement for not being on the top 10 as an indicator of any bad qualities. These 5 films are all really solid stuff. To start off, my first honorable mention, Denis Villeneuve's Dune. This is honestly a tremendous science fiction spectacle. I can't think of another science fiction movie that looks or feels like this. Many people have basically said that this is the new Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, and I suppose you could say it is in terms of just beautifully immersing its viewers into a strange new world that they've never seen before. But this is something that stands all on its own. This is truly a monolithic achievement. And honestly, it would have made it in my top 10 if it wasn't for the fact that it's only half a movie. It sucks that it's only half a movie, because when I saw it, I would have gladly sat in the cinema for 5 hours or more, stuck in this sci-fi induced trance, watching this strange, brutalist, surreal monolith for who knows how long. I loved this. Who knows what'll happen when part 2 comes out? If part 2 lives up to the promise that part 1 gave us, then I may have to make a retroactive comment and put this into my top 10. That may just happen. Let's see how it turns out in 2023. So, my next honorable mention goes to the documentary Val about famous actor Val Kilmer. This was something that was produced by A24 and Amazon, and it was directed, oddly enough, by the guys who typically edit Harmony Korine's movies. The strange selection of directors, but take what you can get. And honestly, this is a very well done documentary, which should honestly sound like on the surface as some sort of like, oh, what's the word I'm looking for here? Oh yeah, vanity project. This should look like some kind of like vanity project for an actor who's past his prime, is instead an empathetic portrait of a weirdo with dreams. And as tough as it is to watch, as upsetting as it can be, it's also something of an enduring movie at the same time. It paints such like a beautiful picture of somebody who's gone through a lot of crap, and despite their current health status, Val Kilmer still keeps on trucking along. And on top of that, I gotta say this is also the movie that has encouraged me to finally getting around to watching Top Gun. And because of the fact that Kilmer is going to be in the upcoming Top Gun sequel, Tom Cruise, I might just have to see it just to see Kilmer on screen. I don't care. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Next honorable mention goes to Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead. Zack Snyder had himself one hell of a year this year between finally getting his proper cut of Justice League out and creating this wonderfully over the top, gory Netflix original right here. Honestly, between the two films, I much preferred Army of the Dead, simply for the reason that this is the first zombie movie I've ever seen, or at least one I haven't seen in a long time like this, where I was rooting for the undead as much as I was the humans. Plus, also, there's a badass tiger kitty that rips apart some asshole, so you can't complain too much about that. My next honorable mention goes to a French film called Jumbo by Zoe Widdock. For anyone who's heard of this one, it's a bit of a strange one. If I could summarize it, I'd say it's what would happen if you crossed The Shape of Water with Under the Skin and you put a typical coming of age story in it as its main narrative thrust. It is a strange film. There was one review I remember seeing that said, uh, 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 man and woman, not like I forget how the quote goes, but it's like something like like there was like something that said not Florence and the Machine, but this strange, adorable, tender, and even a little bit sexy tale of objectphilia is far better than the initial pitch makes it sound to be. If you want to give it a shot, I definitely recommend it. And hey, you can pair this with Titanus, strange French movies about strange sexuality. Mm. And for my final honorable mention, I'd like to give it to David Lowery's The Green Knight. This strange fantasy movie that somehow got a wide release about on par as like a blockbuster. I can't believe a movie like this wound up in over 2,000 cinemas. Not only is it an achievement in that regard, but it also gave me some of the most stunning visuals I've seen all year, and the best performance I saw all year in the form of Dev Patel's Sir Garwin. This one honestly would have made it onto my top 10 as well. Same thing with Dune, but honestly, there were some pacing issues towards the end of the film that I took issue with. The film still ultimately delivers, and I've seen the film 3 times already, once in a cinema, twice on video. So that obviously says something about its quality. But those little pacing issues still kind of got on my nerves. For those of you who've seen the film, you might know what I'm talking about. It's not the film's overall pace, but there's like a section that happens that I kind of felt like killed the pacing dead in its tracks for a while. Thankfully, it manages to redeem itself in that third act, and despite my criticisms, The Green Knight is a film that is most definitely worth watching. Now, with all those out of the way, let's get on to the main attraction. Starting with
My number 10 pick, The Card Counter. Nice to see Paul Schrader prove First Reformed wasn't a fluke and that he's going to be on a nice career hot streak soon. Oscar Isaac gives the performance of his career thus far in this Bressonian tale of a gambler with a haunted past. This is the sort of movie loaded with swagger on the surface but rife with thematic complexity underneath, and I'll happily give this 10 more viewings on a pure entertainment value alone, just to comb over and see what I missed. Number 9. Passing. Rebecca Hall takes a break from working with all the great talent she's accumulated over the years and decided to take a swing at filmmaking with this adaptation of the 1920s novel of the same name, centering on the friendship of 2 mixed-race women and how they come to terms with their own identities. Gorgeous, understated, and confident stuff with 2 terrific performances by Tessa Thompson and Ruth Negga, and a classy jazz score to back it up. Can't wait to see more from her. Number 8. No Time to Die. Daniel Craig ends his tenure as the famous super spy in a blockbuster that will probably give you the most bang for your buck you'll see from any movie from last year. Cary Joji Fukunaga gives us a sleek, sprawling finale that gives us all we want out of a Bond flick, but with an unexpectedly emotional backbone to the proceedings that may have you tearing up when all is said and done. Good show. Number 7. Violation. A rape revenge movie that may wear its inspirations towards the works of Lars von Trier and Lynn Ramsay a bit too much on its sleeve, but succeeds on its relentless darkness and unflinching brutality. Directing duo Dusty Mancelli and Madeline Sims Fewer make one hell of a downbeat take on the genre, one that's more focused on the aftermath of vengeance than the in the moment emotions, and if one can find any sort of catharsis in the wake of such terrible events, bound to ruin your evening, but for those who can take it, you'll be rewarded. Number 6. The Last Duel. When Ridley Scott is given the right sort of script, he can make whatever the competition currently is look like second rate by comparison. And with this medieval drama set in the late 1300s about a rape case that sparks the last legally sanctioned duel in France, he proves why he's still got it. Throw in a first rate cast, his technical brilliance, and thoughtful themes about insecure masculinity, half truths, and systematic misogyny, and you've got the kind of premium ass kicker that would have been a smash hit in the 90s than in the franchise crowded market we have today. Oh, and hot take, but he was right what he said about millennials. And I say this as someone who is one. Number 5, The Medium. Dear God, that was terrifying. Found footage movies are usually a dime a dozen due to how cheaply made they can be, but this Thai horror film shows what happens when the subgenre is done properly. Director Baijan Faizan Thanakan, I sincerely hope I'm pronouncing this right, brings us a tale of shamanism and possession that, despite its long running time, keeps you locked in for whatever this will end up at. And when the film finally reaches its climax, it becomes a grotesque geyser of despair and scares. Pro tip, do not eat fried food before you watch this one. Trust me. Number 4, Titan. For your information, it's more about than just the car fucking. Trust me. Julia DeCarno goes all out on her sophomore follow-up to Raw from a few years back in a body horror flick that's as gross, brutal, provocative, and cringe-inducing as it is sweet, moving, wholesome, and deeply emotional. To say anything more on this true blue oddity would spoil the fun, but a word of advice. If you ever come across some dipshit complaining about the state of originality in movies, show them this and cackle in glee as their jaws never stop dropping. Mine didn't. Number 3, The Suicide Squad. Thank you, Warner Brothers, for giving James Gunn truckloads of money to not only make the best superhero movie I've seen since Logan, but also his masterpiece. A hilariously immature, fast-moving, adorably bloody good time. Right from the opening scene where Michael Rooker kills a small bird with a rubber ball set to a Johnny Cash song, to the final frame of Idris Elba nervously petting the world's most adorable rat, I had a grin on my face that never left for a single second. For all the fuck-ups Warner Brothers does with the DC Comics brands, they always swing for the fences, and this is for sure one of the definite hits. Number 2, The Matrix Resurrections. Lana Wachowski returns to the franchise that made her famous and reclaims it from all the douchebags in the world who would seek to bastardize it. A swooningly romantic, meta as hell, and deliriously imaginative return to one of the most iconic science fiction franchises of all time, but now older, wiser, even a little bit more playful, and far more interested in conversation and progress than it is in dense explanation and spectacle. More of an epilogue than a continuation, and frankly, all the better for it. Here's to Neo and Trinity in their quest to paint rainbows in the sky for as much as they please. Number 1, Saint Maud, a slender and unholy melding of The Exorcist, Taxi Driver, and Breaking the Waves, with a distinct British flavoring to the proceedings. Rose Glass's debut pretty much took its spot as my favorite film of the year as early as May, and refused to be dethroned no matter how many good movies 2021 threw at me. Believe me, I saw quite a bit, but none could take down this tightly wound, disturbing as hell, and powerful character study of a hospice worker with a massive lady boner for Catholicism, who becomes obsessed with saving the soul of her newest patient, a performative artist with cancer. This was unfortunately one of the biggest victims of all the COVID delays we've had to deal with for the past couple of years, and that's an absolute shame, because this is the sort of filmmaking that isn't fucking around and would have been killer to have seen on a big screen. Still, I've watched this sucker 3 times already, and I may find myself going in for a fourth viewing sometime in this new year of ours. All hail the Queen of 2021, folks.
So that's it. That's my top 10 of the year. It was nice doing this video, actually. It was a bit of a pain in the ass, but worth it all the same. And for those wondering, yes, I do intend to do a worst of. I'm not sure if I'll make it as polished as this video is, because quite frankly, the worst does not deserve this kind of treatment. But who knows? I'll see how that video plays out. Anyway, happy 2021, people. Hope you have a wonderful 2022, and thanks for watching.